Let's start reading the new chapter, Oneness. Before we start reading, what is oneness? Oneness is at the highest level of existence. The divine is the only thing that remains. So he is one. And what is the nature of the divine? Is he a person or is he a state of consciousness? He is both. He is personal and impersonal. And what is his nature? It is truth, consciousness, substance, Ananda and Shakti. But these are not separate things, they are all one. That one substance which is Sat. Sat means existence, if you want. Existence is nothing but substance which is subtle, absolutely subtle. And in that it is also capable of consciousness, it is capable of power, and it is also capable of Ananda. Now, when that comes, manifests itself, just as the seed is not manifesting itself, the seed is the oneness. And the one seed, when it wants to manifest all the things that are in it, in the physical world at the lowest level, it becomes the multiplicity. So in consciousness, normally human beings are in the world of multiplicity. You identify yourself with your body, mind, life, and you are seeing only difference. Human beings are different, animals are different, trees are different, everything is different. But if you rise in consciousness and go above, slowly, slowly you start seeing in more and more intensity and more truth that the ultimate reality is only one and not many. Okay? As you keep going up in consciousness, when you go to the supramental level, both the things are valid, the oneness as well as the many. But if you go beyond the supermind, there is no many at all. It's absolutely one. In the supermind, you can have a intense touch of the oneness, but you can also experience the potentiality of the many in the supermind. Above the supermind, only one. And that what is that one? Satchidananda. Okay? It is as though the divine is concentrating only on himself. It's a dense light which is not going outwards at all, like a black hole. The difference is the black hole is black, whereas the oneness in the divine, there is light. That's the only difference. But it is there. But when it wants to manifest itself, it becomes the many. So this is the oneness. Okay, we start reading. Who will read today?
Shall I read?
Yes.
Shall I read?
Okay, you can read. It's a small paragraph, not a big one. When then?
When then, by the withdrawal of the central consciousness from the identification with the mind, life, and body, one has discovered one's true self, discovered the oneness of that self with the pure, silent, immutable Brahman, discovered in immutable in the Akshara Brahman, that by which the individual being escapes from his own personality into the impersonal. The first movement of the path of knowledge has been completed. It is the soul that is absolutely necessary for the traditional aim of the yoga of knowledge, for emergence, for escape from cosmic existence, for release into the absolute and ineffable Parabrahman who is beyond all cosmic being. The seeker of this ultimate release may take other realizations on his way, may realize the Lord of the universe, the Purusha, who manifests himself in all creatures, may arrive at the cosmic consciousness, may know and feel his unity with all beings. But these are only stages or circumstances of this journey, the result of the unfolding of the soul as it approaches nearer the ineffable goal. To pass beyond them all is his supreme object. When, on the other hand, having attained to the freedom and the silence and the peace, we resume possession by the cosmic consciousness of the active as well as the silent Brahman, and can securely live in the divine freedom as well as rest in it. We have completed the second movement of the path by which the integrity of self-knowledge becomes the station of the liberated soul.
Okay, so he is summarizing whatever he said about the Jnana Yoga. Okay, so very shortly, very short, first aim of Jnana Yoga, knowledge, the path of knowledge, is to lose your identification with body, life and mind. You think that you are body, life and mind, but that identification has to cease. And there are so many methods for that. Okay? So that he has already discussed, so we won't go into that. But once you have done that, you have lost your identification with body, life and mind, then you are in the Akshara Brahman. Now, I'll give you many words which are similar. Okay? He is saying immutable Brahman. This is the normally the word immutable Brahman, or you use the word self. Okay? But you can also use the word Atman. All this is the same. Akshara Brahman is the word used in the Gita. When the soul is in the body, mind, life identified, it is called the Kshara Brahman. Okay? Kshara Brahman, Kshara Purusha. But when the soul rises and goes outside the body, mind, life, it becomes the Akshara. And finally, at the highest level, it becomes the Uttama Purusha, the highest Purusha. So there are 3 levels in the Gita, and here also Srindra is going to speak about the 3 levels. The first level, lose your identification with body, mind, life, and go to the silent self, which is the Akshara Brahman, the Atman, the self, and you can also use the word, the Nirvana is the result of the Brahman. Okay. Nirvana is the reality. Nirvana. Okay. You are blowing out the reality of the universe. Okay. That's what happens when you go to the self. When you make your mind silent and go, that's what happens. So, before we go into each sentence, I will just read out the summary of what he is saying, because we have the summary here. So, when identification with body, life and mind ceases, and the soul, which is a central consciousness, escapes from its prison of body, mind, life, which is the surface nature, it realizes its oneness with the immutable infinite Brahman, which you may also call the Akshara, you may call it the Self, okay, or the Atman. This then is the first aim on the path of knowledge, the realization of the impersonal after the dissolution of the personality, which is the surface external nature of body, life, mind. You realize the self and you wait for the body, mind, life to get dissolved after death. And you can remain in that consciousness forever if you want. Our scriptures speak of siddhas who have been able to realize their own, and they live very happily in those upper regions. Okay. Not only are there gods who are permanent, but even individual souls who have got liberation, they also live in those levels of consciousness. So that is one possibility. The other possibility is they don't want to live anymore at all. They want to even lose their identification. They disappear into the infinite. That's the second. And Srivna is saying the third is don't live in the, after liberation, don't live in the higher planes of spiritual planes forever. Come down and take a body, mind, life again. And this time become the instrument of the divine. Okay. So these are 3 possibilities when you realize the self. There. So this then is the first aim of the path of knowledge, the realization of the impersonal after the dissolution of the personality. The body dissolves, the vital also dissolves, and the mind also dissolves. Sometimes the vital does not dissolve. The body always will dissolve. It's very rare for the body not to dissolve. There is a body of a Christian saint in Goa, which is 400 years old. Okay. So, but even after 400 years, some sort of decomposition is bound to happen, because the law of the physical world is transience. There is nothing permanent in the physical world. So, although that Christian saint in Goa is 400 years old, he is enclosed in a glass case. Okay, and Srivamda's body did not decompose for 5 days. Okay. It could have been remained even more, but mother decided that the golden light had gone away, so she decided to put it into a coffin and put it in the ashram. Then there is a well-documented case of a Paramahamsa yogi in America. He went to America and for 25 days his body did not rot. Okay, there was no dissolution of the body for 25 days. But ultimately it will. But it can happen that the vital need not dissolve. Why and when? When the vital has got very strong attachments in the physical world, it refuses to get dissolved. It wants to satisfy its attachment. Or if you have got a very strong desire, okay, then also you want to, this vital being wants to enjoy that desire, so it enters into other bodies. This is not very common, but it can happen. Okay, it can, in fact, Sri Aurobindo says it can even, and the vital being of a human being can enter into an animal, okay, and try and enjoy its what it could not fulfill in its life, or it may try and possess another human being. That also is possible. So let us suppose that the body dissolves and the vital also dissolves. Sometimes the mind also may not dissolve. If it's a very strong mental formation, it will continue to remain in the physical, in the mental regions. But normally all these three dissolve and the psychic being goes up and it has a choice to either dissolve itself, which is the highest Buddhist aim, or it can remain in the spiritual planes of consciousness, or like in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, it has a choice to come down again with a new body, even after realization. Okay, so this is what Sri Aurobindo is saying here in so many indifferent words. I've gone a little beyond what he's saying in the first para. Okay, Jnana Yoga, I'm reading the summary again. Jnana Yoga traditionally aims at escape from the cosmic existence with its limitations and imperfections and seeks emergence into the ineffable. Emergence means the grain of salt goes into the ocean and disappears, becomes the ocean. Immerse. The word emerge means to come out of, and immerge means to go into. So the soul goes into the infinite Satchidananda from where it came. Okay. Then Sendo continues, the summary continues, the sadhaka may also get other experiences on the way or at the end of the journey. Okay. And what are they? The first is you can experience a Lord of the universe, Ishvara, the personal aspect of God. Whatever form you want to see God in, you will see him. Ramakrishna saw Buddha, Ramakrishna saw his own mother, the divine mother, in the form that he was worshipping her, and Sri Aurobindo saw Sri Krishna. Okay, so it depends on what you are wanting to see. There are people on the western coast of India. It's an ashram, Kanangad ashram, where he used to see Ram. Okay, so there are so many different cases, but you can see the Lord of the universe, Ishwar, with a form. The second possibility, the Purusha who manifests himself in all creatures, the one in the many. You see the divine presence in everybody and all creatures. That's the second possibility. You may experience that. I remind you about Sri Aurobindo experience in jail. He is seeing Sri Krishna in everybody. That's what Sri Aurobindo is talking about here. The second possibility. Okay? You are seeing the divine in everybody. The third possibility, the cosmic consciousness, the many in the one. Okay? The many in the one. Okay? That also is possible. You can have the experience. Then the fourth possibility, the soul may feel its unity with all beings. That's a cosmic consciousness. The one becoming the many. All these are auxiliary experiences, extra. And the sadhak may want to go beyond all this by crossing all over them. Okay? That's a Buddhistic aim and the Mayavada aim. But if he wishes to go further beyond the traditional aim of Jnana Yoga and not stop only at the escape from cosmic existence, he will descend again into the lower. He can also come down into the lower if he has a will to do so. Okay? But this time, without the gripping ignorance of the senses. Once you have realized your real being, you have the choice to come down again and take a human body. Okay? But when you come down, the consciousness is not subject to the ignorance of the senses. But the body-mind life will be limited. The other possibility of even the body-mind life becoming divine is when you station yourself permanently in this supermental world. That's different. Okay? He will have the realization of the active Brahman. So once you have realized the passive Brahman in the self and you are stationed permanently in the passive Brahman, you have the choice to come down into the physical world again, and then you will realize also the active Brahman. That's what Sri Aurobindo and Mother had. They were in the active Brahman. They are acting physically in the world, but their consciousness is high up. Now, so they have the realization of the active Brahman apart from the passive Brahman at the end of Jnana Yoga. Then the sadhak, he will then have completed the second movement of the path of Jnana Yoga. So Sri Aurobindo is saying there are two paths. One path, ascend, go up into the spiritual planes of consciousness and dissolve yourself. Or you need not dissolve yourself. That's the first path. The second path, come down again, okay, and become an instrument of the divine. That's the what Sri Aurobindo. That's the third. What Sri Aurobindo will tell you in the next para. You can have the experience of coming down, but once you come down, that's only the second. You have to complete that, then you become the, in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, you become the instrument of the divine and start working for him. That's the third. Okay, that's what Sri Aurobindo is saying. We will tweak. Okay, we will tweak the Jnana Yoga aim and go a little further. That's what Sri Aurobindo is saying. And what is meant by going further? Don't lose your body, mind, life so easily. Don't reject it. Get the realization of your true being. Come down and become the instrument of God and even help others. That's it. What Sri Aurobindo is saying. We go to the next paragraph. The soul thus possesses itself. Shilpa read. So now either Yasmin or
I will read from the back.
okay, Suki, go ahead. The soul thus possesses.
The soul possesses itself in the unity of Satchitananda upon all the manifested planes of its own being. This is the characteristic of the integral knowledge, that it unifies all in Satchitananda, because not only is being one in itself, but it is one everywhere, in all its poises and in every aspect, in its utmost appearance of multiplicity as in its utmost appearance of oneness. The traditional knowledge, while it admits this truth in theory, yet reasons practically as if the oneness were not equal everywhere or could not be equally realized in all. It finds it in the unmanifest absolute, but not so much in the manifestation, finds it purer in the impersonal than in the personal, complete in the nirguna, not so complete in the saguna, satisfyingly present in the silent and inactive Brahman, not so satisfying present in the active. Therefore, it places all these other terms of the absolute below their opposites in the scale of ascent and urges their final rejection as if it were indispensable to the utter realization. The integral knowledge makes no such division. It arrives at a different kind of absoluteness in its vision of the unity. It finds the same oneness in the unmanifest and the manifest, in the impersonal and the personal, in nirguna and saguna, in the infinite depth of the universal silence and the infinite largeness of the universal action. It finds the same absolute oneness in the Purusha and the Prakriti, in the divine presence and the works of the divine power and knowledge, in the eternal manifestness of the one Purusha and the constant manifestation of the many Purushas, in the inalienable unity of Satchidananda, keeping constantly real to itself its own manifold oneness, and in the apparent division of mind, life, and body, in which oneness is constantly, if secretly real, and constantly seeks to be realized. All unity is to it an intense, pure, and infinite realization, all difference an abundant, rich, and boundless realization of the same divine and eternal being.
Okay, so again we follow the same method. We will see briefly what he's saying and then we'll go back to each sentence because many possibilities he's talking about. Okay. When the soul, I'm reading the summary of what he's saying. When the soul lives in the active Brahman and the passive Brahman simultaneously, okay, his consciousness is up there, but it is also there in the body. Okay. Note interestingly that the consciousness is plastic. It is not something rigid like a stone or something like an object. It can divide itself. Part of you can be in the vital, part of you can be in the mental, part of you can be in the body also. Consciousness is not something, consciousness is something fundamental. It's a reality which exists by itself. So you can have part of your consciousness in the highest level and you can have your consciousness even in the body-mind life. That's what he's saying. When the soul lives in the active Brahman and the passive Brahman simultaneously. In other words, active Brahman, you are in your body. The soul is conscious that I am in the body. And the passive Brahman simultaneously. You know that part of you is up there in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Then it is stationed in the lower hemisphere, but without being subjected to the ignorance is the multiplicity. It then possesses Satchidananda on all the manifested planes of existence. The soul experiences the oneness and the multiplicity simultaneously on all the planes of existence, and that too in a harmonious way. The traditional knowledge accepts the truth of the active and the passive Brahman, yet in practice considers oneness to be more manifest in the higher planes and less manifested in the lower planes. It claims that in the lower hemisphere, oneness cannot be experienced fully. Okay? If you want to experience oneness fully, you have to leave the lower hemisphere and go into the spiritual planes of consciousness, which is the higher hemisphere. The oneness, according to this traditional yoga, can be experienced fully only in the transcendent, the silent, the immutable, the passive Brahman, the impersonal, the Nirguna. I am using all, Srimdas use all these words. You can see the oneness fully when you are in the transcendent consciousness, and which is silent, immutable, passive, because you are not acting in the physical world, impersonal, the Nirguna. But not so fully in the lower planes of body-mind life. You can see oneness, you can begin to see the oneness, but it's relative. You also see the many, but you don't see the fullness of the oneness. That's what he's saying. Then, thus, the traditional paths place these planes, the individual consciousness, the active Brahman, the mutable, the personal divine, the Saguna, below their opposites, and finally even reject them as unnecessary to get the oneness. And they can even be serious serious obstacles to attain oneness in the higher hemisphere. The lower can be very serious obstacles if you want the full oneness. That's why they reject it. So there is some justification for it. Okay? The Buddhists and the Mayavadins, they all reject the lower. Even in the Sankhya philosophy also they do that. Jnana Yoga also they do that. They don't care for the body-mind life. It is too imperfect and too dense. You cannot see the oneness there. You can have a mental idea. All of us can also have a mental idea of oneness. Okay, all bodies are one, all vitals are one, but it's only an idea. It's not a reality. The reality cannot be possible when you are in the lower hemisphere. That's what they think. Does Srimad agree? He doesn't agree. He says, I agree, but it is possible to do the opposite. That's what he says. Okay, so now, but in the integral yoga, does not differentiate the oneness in the upper and the lower hemisphere. There may be a question of degree, but the oneness can be experienced in the lower also. It maintains The integral yoga maintains that oneness is attainable on all the planes, even if it be more difficult. Certainly it is more difficult because what the others are saying, there is an element of truth in it. But it is possible to experience oneness fully even in the lower consciousness. That's what he's saying. Okay? The oneness is equal. This is what Sri Aurobindo says, the integral yoga. The oneness is equal on all the planes of Purusha and Prakriti in the active Brahman as well as the passive Brahman. So, we may say different now things. So, we may say to the realized soul, all unity is an intense, pure, infinite realization. All difference is an abundance, rich, wealth, boundless realization of the one and only divine and eternal being. So, the multiplicity of the physical world as the others are seeing are obstacles. Same they're saying, I don't see it as obstacles. I see it as the wealth of the divine. He says that it is producing so many different things. Okay? Why do you reject it? It is, when you take a form, naturally the oneness gets reduced because you are seeing the many, but it is equally valid. You have to see it in this way. That's what he's saying. He agrees that oneness cannot be experienced fully in the lower planes, but essentially it can be experienced. And when you are seeing the multiplicity, you should consider it as a wealth and a variety. Why should you eat only one dish? Why not have several dishes, okay, in your food? Enjoy all. That's what they say. Okay? So, we have about 10 minutes. So, I go back to the beginning of the paragraph. So, he has told you in the previous one that once you get the liberation, okay, once you get the liberation, that is the first stage of the Jnana Yoga. The second stage of the Jnana Yoga is to realize the active Brahman. You can also, which is what the Gita says. Remain in the physical world and don't be subject to the imperfections of the physical world. Be like a lotus leaf in water. But the soul is pure and is living, and the soul is not affected. But the body-mind life does get affected. Okay, that's different. But the soul, you are the soul. You are not the body-mind life. Okay, so that's why that is second. But in Sri Aurobindo case, he says we go even beyond the Gita. We have to even make the body-mind life divine. Okay? So those are the three. So Sri Aurobindo is saying, when you complete the second movement, that is the second movement of the Jnana Yoga. Now he goes to the third level. Let's see what he says. I am reading the sentences in the second para. The soul thus possesses itself in the unity of Satchidananda upon all the manifest planes of his own being. Now that's an interesting sentence because all souls can't do that. Okay, most of the souls usually, when they escape from the prison of body-mind life, they station themselves only in the spiritual planes of consciousness. And if they want to come down to the body-mind life again, they lose the knowledge and the ananda that they have got in the higher. The memory is there, but you have lost you don't have the power to change what you have seen there, you don't have the power to put it into practice. Okay, that's what Sri is saying. And Ramakrishna uses two different words, a Jiva Koti and an Ishvara Koti. A Jiva Koti is one who stations himself on the spiritual planes of consciousness. Okay? But a Ishvara Koti is one who can travel happily between all these planes without losing his divine consciousness. That's a Jiva Koti. The Ishvara Koti. Two types of souls. Now, Sri Aurobindo continues. This is the characteristic of the integral yoga, that it unifies all in Satchidananda, because not only is being one in itself, but it is one everywhere, in all the poises and in every aspect, in its utmost appearance of multiplicity, as in its utmost appearance of oneness. Okay, I think we have to go a little into detail in this sentence. So what Sridhar is saying, this is the characteristic of the integral yoga, that it unifies all in Satchidananda, because it's not only is it being one in itself, okay, and being can be translated as substance, consciousness, power, chit and ananda. Okay? It is one in itself, but it is one everywhere, in all its poises and in every aspect. I'll go a little into detail on this. Okay? First of all, he's saying, horizontally you see the oneness. Horizontally. My body and all the other bodies are all essentially matter. So this is what we realize in truth, in experience, not in thought. We can experience it in thought. We know that, yeah, my body is all same element, same composition, same chemical structure of all the bodies. This is the horizontal. What he means by is being one in itself. Okay, matter in itself is one. In itself, not the word. Okay, not outside itself. But now he is saying that it is one everywhere, in all its poises and every aspect. In other words, matter becomes life in the higher planes of consciousness, but it is still substance. So then when it goes into the mental, it is higher, but it is still substance. So two things. One in itself, horizontal. But one everywhere in all its poises, vertical. So everything is one vertically and horizontally. It's very interesting. Huh? See the words and you will understand what he's saying. Okay, so I again repeat, one in itself, okay, is horizontal unity. Horizontal unity. Okay, unity. Just 1 second. All bodies are one, which is matter. Okay, so this is the first one. Then he's saying, is one everywhere in all its poises. So what are the poises of Satchidananda? It can become, first poise is matter, second poise is life, third poise is mind, fourth poise is higher mind, fifth poise is element mind, intuitive mind, etc., etc. Up to the supermind, and beyond also is a poise. So all these also, essentially it is matter, it is substance. But if you want to consider consciousness, again the same thing applies. Matter also is consciousness, life also is consciousness, mind also is consciousness, spiritual planes of the consciousness, and you can go. Then if you want to consider power, again the same thing. So all these things are one horizontally as well as vertically, but they change their form, just like water, ice and water vapor. Okay. So horizontally, even power is matter. No? If you consider power and even Ananda, so the Upanishad says that Ananda is there even in a stone. So horizontal oneness and vertical oneness. Okay, it's interesting what he's saying. So in all being one in itself, the word in itself is so clear. That means in matter itself or in consciousness itself. That is the one, that is the horizontal. Now the other one, in all its poises, the poises are the vertical. Okay, this is the vertical oneness. Okay, all the planes of consciousness. I'm adding it on my laptop. Okay, not laptop, it is the tablet. Okay, so this is what he's saying. Oneness everywhere, vertically as well as horizontally, in its utmost appearance of multiplicity, as in its utmost appearance of oneness. The traditional knowledge, I'm reading the next sentence. The traditional knowledge, while it admits this truth in theory, yet reasons practically as if the oneness were not equal everywhere and could not be equally realized in all. The difference is I think Srivanda would agree that there is a gradation. But they are saying it cannot be realized in the lower. But Srivanda says it can be realized. It's very difficult, but it can be realized. It finds it. It is the traditional yoga. Okay? It finds in it the unmanifest absolute, but not so much in the manifestation. The oneness is very, very possible to see it in the unmanifest absolute. Okay? That the in the self or the Brahman, it is unmanifest. So there it's possible to see the oneness, but not in the manifestation. Which is the manifestation? The physical world. There you don't see. That's what he's saying. Okay? Finds it purer. The traditional path finds the oneness purer in the impersonal than in the personal. Complete in the nirguna, not so complete in the saguna. Satisfyingly present in the silent, inactive being, not so satisfyingly present in the active. So when you are in the physical world, oneness is possible to experience, but partially, not fully satisfying. Okay, this whole thing I have highlighted, and I'll tell you what he's saying. Seeing the divine more in okay. I remember that. Okay, so he gives an example. He says very interesting. He's saying that the divine can be seen more in a beautiful face than in an ugly face. Okay, he's saying that in the record of yoga. Now note that carefully. If you are in the physical world and you are seeing the divine more clearly in a beautiful face than in an ugly face, then what the traditional Jnana Yoga is saying is real, is true. Isn't it? But it is not necessarily permanently so. That's what Swami is saying. Okay? It is possible with great difficulty to see the divine even in an ugly face. Remember what happened to Sri Rama in jail? He is seeing Sri Krishna in murderers and thieves, as well as the judge, as well as the his own lawyer, as well as the prosecutor. Everywhere is seeing the divine. So that oneness is possible, but it's more difficult. Okay, we'll have to stop here today. It's already 8:35. So, in short, the traditional paths are saying oneness is fully possible only in the higher planes of consciousness. In the lower, maybe you have a faint idea of it, but it is not so satisfying. So, if you want full satisfaction of oneness, go to the highest level. Simply saying, what you're saying is true, but it is also possible to experience the oneness in a different way, even in the lower planes of consciousness. Okay? It's possible to experience nirguna, saguna everywhere. So, I think we stop here today, and next time we will continue with the complete realization of unity is therefore. Okay. All right. So, we post it on chat.
Merci beaucoup.
420. Okay. Au revoir, everybody.